This is a letter to the main villain in my Dwellers Beneath the Arches series. We are often taught that the protagonists are good and the antagonists in a story are bad. But I believe it's more complex than that. So much goes on in the lives of the characters that decides their fate and their future. Dear villain, as I sit here with pen in hand, I find myself compelled to write to you, the antagonist of the Dwellers Beneath the Arches series. Your presence in the pages of the book has both fascinated and unsettled me, and I felt the need to express my thoughts and emotions to you directly. First and foremost, I must pat myself on the back for crafting a character as compelling as you. Your portrayal as a villain in the series has been nothing short of captivating. And I must admit that your actions and motivations have left an unforgettable mark on my imagination. Your cunning intellect, your relentless pursuit of power, and your unwavering determination have created a formidable adversary for the protagonist, making the story all the more engrossing. While I may not condone the malevolence that resides within you, I find myself drawn to your complexity. You are not simply a force of evil. There is depth to your character that makes you more than just a caricature. Your past, your experiences, and the circumstances that have shaped you have brought forth a villain with intricate layers, making me question the nature of villainy itself. I must admit that your actions have evoked a wide array of emotions within me, from fear to anger, from intrigue to sympathy. You have managed to elicit a range of responses that challenge my own understanding of morality and the human condition. Your very presence has forced me to examine the shades of grey that exist within us all, highlighting the blurred lines between right and wrong. In this letter, I want to express my appreciation for the role you play in the series. Without your presence, the narrative would lack the gripping tension that kept the readers engrossed. Your opposition to the protagonist has pushed them to the limits, revealing their strengths and weaknesses in the face of adversity. It is through your actions that the hero's journey becomes more meaningful, showcasing the power of resilience, hope, and the triumph of good over evil. How the bond of friendship can eventually be fractured when exhaustion, terror, and death creep in. Yes, you did that. You managed to split the friends up. As I conclude this letter, I want to acknowledge the impact you have had on my writing experience. You are my first proper villain. Your character has ignited my imagination, challenged my perceptions, and reminded me of the power of storytelling to evoke intense emotions. While I may never fully comprehend your choices, I recognize the role you play in shaping the narrative and the profound effect you have on writers like myself, who love to write their characters dark, troubled, yet with so much empathy, with a mixture of fascination, respect, and perhaps a touch of trepidation. I bid you farewell, knowing that your character will forever linger in the recesses of my mind. I hope to create a villain that will surpass your villainy in my next series. I hope I will do you proud. Sincerely, Oyinda. I've always been somewhat obsessed with a villain. why they do what they do, what makes them tick, their history. And I think whenever we watched cartoons as a child, or even movies, the villains were always bad from the very beginning. There was never any explanation as to why they were the way they were, whilst the heroes were these dazzling creatures who were amazing, couldn't do anything wrong, and always swept in at the last minute to rescue people from this evil villain. But I've never been entirely comfortable with that characterization of the villain. I find the villain more complex and, in a way, more interesting than the hero. I think the hero has always been too simple. I come, I rescue, I'm great, the whole town, the city, the world celebrates, and I find that very boring. Now, if we had more heroes in the fairy tales and in the books, with more character, more complexities, in a way more trauma, I think that would make them a lot more interesting. But I think we've tended to simplify the heroes, and we've made the villains quite fascinating. So even as a child, I was quite fascinated by the villains because I wanted to know why they did what they did. Take Sleeping Beauty, for example. This was the animation that was done years ago. If you look at Princess Aurora, I found her quite simple, very ditzy. Prince Philip, I thought, was a bit of an idiot. The two kings, their fathers, were very simple. The fairy godmothers I did like, Flora, Fauna, and forgotten the last one's name. I did like them. And then you had Maleficent, and you had all these really simple characters who were just very interesting or beautiful, and that was it. And then you had Maleficent in her castle, brooding with her crown next to her, and I thought Maleficent was, wow, now that's someone I really want to know more about. And I remember saying this as a child, oh, I really like Maleficent, and I think a few people found that quite odd, because why would you like the dark evil creature? But I thought she was so interesting, and there was so much more you could do with her character as well, because I think from that very early stage of my life, I was thinking as a writer, because I'd already started writing, and Maleficent lived in this castle, like I said, with her bird perched on her shoulder, and she had the staff she always carried with the globe at the top of it that could do the premonitions or could see into the future. And to me, that was very interesting. And then she had those gremlin type creatures that lived in the castle with her, and to me, she was just beautiful, amazing, and she had this theme tune that was played whenever she was approaching, and it was, for me, she was just amazing. And I don't think they meant to do that. I think she was meant to be this dark, scary creature, but I think a lot more of us found her interesting than we were supposed to, which is why they brought out the animation, was it, with the Angelina Jolie, and they brought that out much later on, and people were fascinated with that and they loved it. And then they delved into her character as a child and what made her who she is. And that's obviously the reason why, I think back then people found her interesting, because she was the most complex character. And I've always been fascinated with the villains anyway. I've always found them interesting. I've always wanted to know what made them tick. And I think with villains, when you put them into a story, rather than just making them the bad, awful, big bad villain, why? You can use the why, what, where, when. Why? Who are they? Who are they in the past? Who are they now? What situation led them to where they are now? Why are they the way they are? There's so many questions and so many complexities you could weave around the villain, which is why I've always liked writing villains, and I've always liked making them interesting, and I don't think too much about them. When I write villains, it just comes out very easily, and I don't really think there's a hero. There's a villain, and then there's the people who aren't villains yet. I think everyone has a chance to be a villain.
and I think the heroes just choose to play it fairly safe. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. Obviously, we all have different opinions. Some people might be offended by me liking the villains, but I think a lot more people, especially writers, will appreciate the villains a lot more, because I think they're just a lot more interesting to write. I will see you in the next video.